We return now to question time. Question number 5, James Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
James Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance and reads, will there be the opportunity for public submissions as part of his review of foreign trusts?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, the task of the review is to understand the technical issues and identify opportunities to strengthen the disclosure regime for foreign trusts. And that is the purpose of the independent expert review. As is normal practice for this kind of review, public submissions will not be heard at this stage. However, as the Prime Minister has said, the Government is open to considering changes to the disclosure rules if that is warranted. Should legislative change be required, for example, public submissions will be invited in the usual way through the select committee process and generally in changes of tax law. If that's what was involved, they generally go through a public consultation process.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, James Shaw.
So if he won't allow the public to make submissions as part of the review process, will he guarantee that transparency and anti-corruption experts will be invited to give their expert opinion?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, they seem to be giving their opinions now. Some seem to be less informed than others, but the independent review will continue. Mr. Shewan is not going to be taking public submissions, but I'm sure he will be looking at all the relevant material the member's referring to.
Supplementary question, James Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, am I to take from his answers then that Mr. Shewan will conduct his review without referring to anybody external other than his own opinion?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure he will refer to all sorts of external opinions and technical material, but in the end he will give us a report which is his view of it, and that will be open to contest by anyone who wants to argue about it.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, James Shaw.
Will all evidence from the review be open and available for public scrutiny?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure it will, subject to any relevant privacy considerations, such as New Zealand's tax privacy law, if that's relevant, and I actually don't know whether it is or it isn't.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, James Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Minister think that having a single poacher act as gamekeeper will restore public confidence in our foreign trust industry?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, I reject the member's characterisation. Look, the fact is nothing that we could do will satisfy the Greens, who are fundamentally opposed to capitalism, profit, taxation, people getting ahead and making money. We can't deal with all those concerns.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, James Shaw.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wasn't asking for a review of Green Party policy. I was asking about whether or not the evidence would be open for public scrutiny.
Yeah, and the question was fairly loaded. The answer was certainly given at the first part. The second part of the answer doesn't add anything to the information before the House. James Shaw, supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does it matter whether or not New Zealand fits the legal definition of a tax haven if it's being used as one anyway?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, there's been a lot of discussion about whether New Zealand is, quote, a tax haven. Any country that has a commercial structure such as companies could be described as a tax haven if they are used by some people to avoid tax. We reject the label of tax haven, but we're of course open to expert advice about whether the disclosure rules around foreign trusts are adequate or not.
Question number 6,